Good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, and tonight on this historic election day, we bring you an exclusive interview that couldn't be more timely. That's right. Just hours before the polls closed across America, I sat down with the legendary Congressman Ron Paul to discuss this crucial election. But the extraordinary developments that we've seen in recent days, from his shocking alliance with Ron Paul, with Elon Musk, to J.D. Vance's embrace of his monetary ideas. Now, before we dive in, I want to announce something special to commemorate this historic alliance between Ron Paul and Elon Musk and the MAGA movement. We've released our exclusive MAGA Avengers collection at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. You can find the link down below. This limited edition gear celebrates the unprecedented coalition that's forming to take on the deep state. Now, these designs won't be available for long, so head over to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com to secure yours now. So, are you listening? As Ron Paul has warned for decades, our monetary system's on the brink. With the national debt surpassing $35 trillion and the Fed still printing money, we're watching his predictions come true in real life. While the establishment panics about the Paul-Musk alliance, smart money is moving into what Dr. Paul has always advocated: real constitutional money, gold and silver. If you have funds sitting in a low-interest bank account or 401k or IRA retirement account, you need to call my friends at Global Gold Investments, America's leading conservative precious metals dealer. Receive their new 2024 Protect Your Wealth and Retirement Guide absolutely free. The number is 888-700-4148. Mention Next News for their 5-star customer treatment, along with a complimentary portfolio analysis. Operators are standing by. 888-700-4148, or just visit IRAGoldproof.com. Remember, if you don't have gold, you don't have wealth. Now, let's get to my conversation with Dr. Paul, where he reveals what he really thinks about Trump's economic plans, shares his reaction to Elon Musk's outreach, and delivers a powerful message about what's really at stake in today's election. Congressman Paul, it is an honor to have you here.
Good. Nice to be with you, Harry.
Absolutely. So, seeing this flurry of information across X, your name is back in the headlines, of course, where it belongs. Before we get into the Elon Musk and this new department he's considering with Donald Trump, I want to look back real quick. And what parallels between how the media treated your campaign and Donald Trump? What parallels do you see?
Well, it's the same old story because you have to depend that you're not going to have much friendly relationship with the media. So I think there is a parallel, but he has a different personality and he has a different tone than I do. But I don't think that's a problem to anybody. But the problem is the people who really run the show and all the way down to the deep state. They're concerned about the message. So if you're sending out a message, no matter who you represent or what you do or what quality the output is, it's the fact that there's a lot of resentment and they don't know how to handle it. So it usually turns into anger and misunderstanding because the whole thing is when you have an empire, you have to lie to keep it. And boy, there's a lot of them. They can't believe the garbage that they spew out because it is so bad. And then they pretend to be the ones who will be the arbiter of what is truth. So it is pretty disheartening at times. But the good news is more and more Americans are waking up, and I think we have the numbers on our side. We have to be more creative in getting our message out and why we have to change this situation. And I think one at a time, let's hope some good comes out of this election.
Back in 2008, 2012, the Ron Paul revolution was in full force. I mean, armies of people putting Ron Paul signs everywhere. I was part of that, and I was proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to always support your message. What similarities can you say between the Ron Paul revolution and the MAGA movement can you see?
Well, I think it's grassroots. The people that are frustrated and they're looking for it. And at times, I think they're looking for truth. And Trump gets credit where it's due, and that is, well, at least he's leveling with us. Sometimes he goes off, but they say he's exactly opposite of Kamala. He says it as it is, and people want that. And I think that's the difference And that even though our personalities are different, I think that was the whole thing. One time there was somebody came up after one of my rallies on a we had a big rally, but a young man came up to me and he wanted to talk. He talked, and we took a picture and that kind of stuff. And but he wanted to mention mostly. I like the emphasis on the Constitution and what you say, and he was very very much involved, and he just sort of grabbed hold of that whole thing. I said, that came up in the debate, and that's what he was referring to. And then he said, and then I told him, I said, well, the candidate next to me had to answer the same question. And I thought he was saying about the same thing, oh, yes, the Constitution is good. And I said, why aren't you talking to him? He says, we don't believe him. So, and I think and that's sort of subjective, but it's very, very important. People want to trust. They're looking for it. You don't have to be perfect. You have to recognize there are problems. But I tell you what, if people are searching for the truth, but I think that's a historic thing from beginning of time. Searching for truth has always been, in contest with the nihilists who believe, well, hey, you guys waste a lot of time. You can't know truth. Nobody knows truth. Nobody knows perfect truth. But I tell you what, there is something out there. There's natural law. You could start with that, and you could talk about the influence in our Constitution. But there's some
Well,
people who literally believe that you can't know truth, so why waste your time on it?
well, let's talk about the law. And President Trump has floated the idea of getting rid of the income tax, something I would love to see. I know you would love to see. Can tariffs really replace that?
Can what?
Tariffs. He's floated tariffs to replace the
Oh,
income
oh
tax.
no, no, that's a disaster. And, the very strong position now. That is something that amazes me because, 20, 30 years ago, left and right, just generally there were tariffs, but it wasn't like it was a religion. And now it's turning into it. And it is bipartisan. There's no doubt that people like that. It is attractive. And it's been suggested that if you go along with it, I put a lot of tariffs on you, you won't have the income tax. But they're not understanding tariffs. I mean, if the tariff is a tax, and the consumer here will suffer the most. So putting big heavy taxes on China will disrupt trade, and the revenues won't be there. I'll tell you that's a fallacy. And yet, this debate has been going on for a long time about whether you should tax imports. And of course, I'd like to start with as close to zero as possible. But my approach on tariffs is economics, of course, but it's also a personal liberty issue. So if you go out, Gary, and you earn a lot of money, and they say, well, you don't have an income tax, but we're going to tell you what to do with your money, or even if you do have the income tax, they say you made the money, but it isn't really yours. It belongs all to the government, and the government will let you have some. You'll have to pay through your income tax and also, the tariffs. And that is what they do. They take it all from you, and so I consider all of it a form of slavery because you have to get anything back that you can spend. Believe me, well, just look at the difference between Trump and Kamala. I mean, she wants to tax it, if you have a valuable asset and goes up in value, but you haven't moved it or touched it, you just took care of it, then you're going to be taxed on the increase in value. There can't be much more stupid than that if you're looking at just some economic
Sure.
policies.
So how? Okay. So if tariffs aren't the answer, and there's talk of getting rid of the income tax, where do we begin? Well, what would be a policy prescription that the good doctor would give to President Trump?
Well, I call spending it the tax, and I don't look at the tax. That's a result of spending, because spending, as soon as the government gets it, they might have an income tax, they might have a tariff, they gather up money, they'll have all kinds of taxes. So that is the incentive, is to tax. But as soon as it's spent, it's debt, And then how will they pay for it? They don't have any money, and they don't have any authority for this. What they do is they take away your right to spend your money. And so to me, it's a moral issue. I mean, you can't spend your money to do harm and violence and that sort of thing. But it's your money, and you should have it to spend. So that means you don't have to figure out, well, which tax is the best. Of course, your question is fair enough because yeah, that's a great theoretical thing, but that's not going to happen. What would you do to start with it? Unfortunately, I'm not very optimistic about that. I don't believe that we'll live to see the day where we see a better Congress who systematically shrinks the size of government, spends less money, and starts paying off the debt.
Well,
That's not going to
let's
happen.
talk about that because Elon Musk has said he wants to cut $2 trillion from the federal government, and he's proposed working alongside you in that new department. So where would you begin? If you got 2 trillion to cut, where are the first cuts going to come down from?
Well, I've talked a lot about that in the campaign because people want to know at least where would you try if you had a Congress that would at least go along with you. And I would cut the militarism. I would cut the wars. I would cut the military industrial complex. I would cut the corporate welfare and the pharmaceuticals. And
Okay, let me ask
but
if I could just jump in. One question though, you talk about Congress, but is there any executive action that the president could take right out the gate to get rid of some of this needless bureaucracy?
Oh, there is, but there's so many special interests uh, and so many people that are, let's say that I did it and I had a pen and I did it. It would be a revolution, you know. Uh, they're not, people are so dependent on it because most people, when they come to my office and want to talk about this, I say, what's your problem? The prices are too high and they're gouging me. I need more money. Send me more money so I can buy my groceries. But they're not willing to say, hey, you know what? These prices are going up because we've spent too much money and we've devalued the dollar, and therefore the dollar is worth less, and the prices are going to go up. So we're volunteering the program. So cut a little bit away from what we get. No, it's not going to happen. I think we have to go through the ringer, and that is hopefully we have enough brains that we don't have to go through Zimbabwe and Venezuela. But at the rate we're doing, so 35 trillion dollars, and it was hardly even wasn't mentioned very much in the debates, in the campaign, and they know that people would rebel against it. But they do. They come up with other things. They say, well, it's the union wages, it's the gouging the business people. They shouldn't have this much profits, and they own too much property, so we ought to tax the property, and on and on. So it goes back to the basic fundamentals of understanding what a free market is like with sound money. So anything you can do to move in that direction. And nobody should, if they're in Congress and they believe this way, they shouldn't vote for anything that raises the debt a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've suggested that everybody that's in Congress or anybody who's in the administration, they should ask, and they're getting ready to do something new because they're not likely to say, "What are we going to get rid of?" If they want to do something new, where'd you get the authority, and where are you going to get the money? And you can't even consider it. You can't even put it out on the table unless they say, well, the authority comes from the Constitution, general welfare clause,
Oh,
something like that.
yeah.
So that nonsense goes on. Well, we don't have gold and silver as legal tender, and you're supposed to do that. So they have to decide. Where's the authority and where's the money coming from? And if they even had a token effort on that, the people would be pretty annoyed. But that's going to happen. The liquidation of debt and the cleansing of the system always occurs, but it's either by people doing common sense and moving in the right direction. And when it isn't as bad as what we have now, that is helpful. So they move, but they move in they have to at least move in the right direction of cutting. And that is where the real burden is, that nobody wants to cut. They're not going to come volunteer and say, "Oh, you ought to cut my program."
Yeah.
But they have to have. I want to go back one more step, and that is the love of liberty. The government has no right to tell me how to live my life. And all individuals should promise they shouldn't initiate violence against other people, and get your freedom back. Those crowds we had in 08 and 12, those young kids, and I was really impressed, because when I said, "That's nice," "Oh yeah, we don't like the draft and we don't like this and all this," I said, "Yes, but one rule is, if you screw up and you have all this and you go out on an adventure and it doesn't work, you can't crawl to the government to go to your neighbor and steal some money to bail you out." And you know what? The applause generally was, very good for that. But it's a tough job, especially when the free lunch is so tempting, and the shift from it is overwhelming. But the liquidation will occur. The debt disappears, and I said, when is that going to happen? Well, it happens all the time, because they say we have an inflation rate of 3, 4, 5. It's probably 10 or 12. Let's say the inflation of the prices is going up 10%, and our dollar is going down 10%. You've just liquidated a bunch of debt. Your money, the debt goes down in real terms. And I think that's a scheme of the government. So when they print money, they steal the value out of your wallet, and you don't even know it. And but the real debt can go down, and that's why, if it gets out of hand, then you have Zimbabwe, and they print billions and billions of dollars, and everybody gets paid off. And a lot of that is starting already, and that's what happens. I don't believe that the country's going to wise up, even though I believe strongly that the educational efforts made by many who believe like you, and you're involved and you're doing something, and to be able to talk with you gives me a lot of encouragement that there are people out there, and I don't know how many, but I can bet you that you already have influenced a lot of people.
Well,
So,
Ron
and
Paul,
that
sir, I'm only here. I'm only in this chair because of your work and Aaron Russo's work, and we're just trying to continue to educate America, and I thank you for that kind message. Uh, this has been decades in the making. Your career, warning about monetary collapse. Do you see today's election as our last chance to peacefully reform the system?
No, I don't believe that. I'm not a nihilist where it's over and done with. Where people have to, but what it depends. It's going to, it's going to, the form is going to change, and but the Marxists, the cultural Marxists, their main job is chaos in the streets, and they're doing a pretty good job with all this wokeism and stuff. They've been so successful in this. So because their theory is chaos in the streets will open up the doors for their type of Marxism, and I would say, okay, we're not going to stop the chaos. It's out there, but we're going to use it to introduce the idea of sound money. This week, I would say I had a little boost in encouragement that somebody in a much higher position than myself are saying, maybe Ron has the right idea about the Federal Reserve. So
Well,
I
yeah,
would say that.
JD Vance, he's taken a liking to your message. We're finding out Elon Musk has been following you. What's your reaction when that news suddenly broke and Elon starts quote tweeting you? You guys are going back and forth. JD Vance is talking about you. What was your reaction when that happened?
Well, I was very pleased, but it isn't. That's not my goal, and I recognize that. I recognize my limitations. But what I recognize is, as clumsy as I may be, and as many people have joined us in many ways, we're making progress. There's people out there. They can't do that. They can't start saying, let's take on the Fed and we're going to cut the budget $2 trillion. I mean, that's great discussion. And they say, well, it's tough how to do that. But my argument is, when it collapses with a total bankruptcy of the country and a currency crisis, It's a lot messier than that. But to me, it's the most important thing is to get more people to understand. And I guide a lot of people. I'm sure you heard, and I'm sure you're aware of it. You guide people toward the Austrian School of Economic Policy because it explains the business cycle and it's based on some moral standard and American traditions fit into that. So that the information is there. It wasn't, the understanding of the market, the understanding of the Austrian economists wasn't available for Adam Smith. And Adam Smith, he was very, very good, obviously, but I think Mises was advanced in his economic thinking.
Now, before we go, one final question. Donald Trump's watching right now. Elon Musk is watching. What advice do you have for them as they venture, Donald Trump going back into the swamp and Elon Musk about to join you going back into the swamp?
Well, that'd be pretty presumptive that I should give them advice, but in a way, our program is designed for that purpose. And today we talked about being cautious because Trump has mentioned that maybe he wasn't cautious enough on appointments. So we talked about the various people up for possibility, and it's good for me. It's going to be soft sell. Point it out and let people know why you might be opposing, some of these individuals because some of them are heroic. They're very well accepted by the public. So that to me is, I've never thought that I was going to wave a wand and everybody was going to be converted. I'm always pleasantly surprised at the number of people who do respond. And I'll just continue to do what I'm doing, just trying my best to understand it. I figure that my job is to do the best I can in understanding the transition. What do you do? What do you do with people on food stamps? What's going to happen? How are they going to live? Well, you have to answer that question. What if you live in Venezuela? How are you going to live? But no, there's lots of transitions you can work, but they first have to understand the basic fundamentals of what a free society about, and that is individuals who run their own lives, and there's going to be no aggression by government in our lives, in our economic policies, nor in the affairs of foreign nations.
Congressman Paul, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to having you back again.
Great, Gary. Good to be with you again.
Good to be with you as well. So there you have it, folks. Ron Paul's urgent message delivered on this historic election day. What we just witnessed wasn't just another interview. It was a glimpse into the future that the establishment fears most. Ron Paul, Elon Musk, Donald Trump joining forces to dismantle the deep state's control over our money and our freedom. And now you can be part of this historic moment. Our exclusive Mag Avengers collection at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com captures this unprecedented alliance between the original voice of the freedom movement and the world's most innovative entrepreneur and the America First president. These limited edition designs, you can that up, Brian, won't be available once this moment passes. So head to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com now. So as Dr. Paul reminded us tonight, this fight isn't just about one election, it's about the future of American liberty itself. So share this interview with everyone you know. The establishment doesn't want this message getting out, but together we can bypass their censorship. You and me. I'm Gary Franchi, and this is the Next News Network. Stay strong, Patriots, and make your voice heard today.